As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. Good morning, friends. I want to encourage you today, no matter where you are, no matter what you're facing, change is coming. The question is, how long does it take to change? Some people say, I've been waiting for years, but nothing's happening. Others wonder, why does it seem like things change overnight for some people but take forever for me? The truth is, change isn't just about time, it's about faith, preparation, and perseverance. God can transform things in an instant, but He also uses the process to strengthen us, shape us, and prepare us for what's ahead. You may not see it now, but the change you've been praying for is already in motion. I want to share with you a few key principles on how long it takes to change and what you can do in the waiting. So often in life, we find ourselves asking, why hasn't this happened yet? We pray, we believe, we do our best to stay faithful, but it seems like nothing is changing. It can be frustrating, even discouraging, when we don't see the results we're hoping for. But I want to remind you today, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God's delays are not His denials. We live in a world that expects everything instantly. We want fast answers, quick solutions, immediate breakthroughs. But God doesn't operate on our timeline. He operates on His. And His timing is always perfect. The reason some things haven't changed yet isn't because God has forgotten about you or because He's not listening to your prayers. It's because He's working behind the scenes, preparing things in ways you can't see. Think about a seed planted in the ground. You don't see anything happening at first. There's no sign of growth, but under the soil, the roots are taking hold. The foundation is being established. If you were to dig it up too soon, you'd stop the process before it could ever bear fruit. Some of us get impatient when we don't see immediate results. We want to force things to happen on our own terms. But if you trust God and stay faithful in the waiting, in due season that seed will sprout, grow, and produce a harvest greater than you imagine. There's a story in the Bible about Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a son, but years went by and nothing happened. They waited and waited, but still no child. Eventually they got impatient and decided to take matters into their own hands. Sarah told Abraham to have a child with her servant, Hagar, and he did, but that wasn't God's best plan. That wasn't the promise. Later in God's timing, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, the child of promise. If they had just waited on God's timing, they could have avoided so much heartache, stress, and difficulty. How many times do we do the same thing? We think, God, I've waited long enough. Let me figure this out on my own. But when we step outside of His timing, we often end up creating more problems for ourselves. When we try to force what God is not yet ready to release, we settle for something far less than His best. You may be in a season right now where you're wondering, when is this going to change? When is my breakthrough coming? Maybe it's a job opportunity, a relationship, healing in your body, or restoration in your family. I want to encourage you, don't give up. Don't get discouraged because it hasn't happened yet. The delay does not mean defeat. God is still working, and when the time is right, He will make it happen. Isaiah 60:22 says, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. Not when we think it's right, not when we feel ready, but when Him knows the timing is perfect. And when that moment comes, nothing can stop it. No person, no obstacle, no opposition when God says it's time. Doors will open, opportunities will appear, and things will shift in ways you never expected. So what do you do in the waiting? You stay faithful. You keep doing what God has called you to do. You keep trusting even when you don't see the results. Because one day you're going to look back and realize that God's timing was better than anything you could have imagined. If it had happened sooner, you wouldn't have been ready. If the opportunity had come earlier, you might not have been able to handle it. But because you trusted Him, He brought you into the right place at the right time with the right people. Friend, don't lose heart. The change you're waiting for is coming. And when it does, it will be right on time. Keep believing, keep standing in faith, and trust that God is working even when you can't see it. So often we think that big breakthroughs happen all at once, that somehow one moment will change everything. We dream of dramatic, instant transformation, but the reality is the journey to any major breakthrough often starts with small, seemingly insignificant steps. These small steps, though they may feel like they're making little difference in the moment, are what build the foundation for something great. They accumulate layer by layer until you realize that you've moved further than you ever thought possible. It's easy to get caught up in the desire for instant results. In a world where everything moves fast, where we can get information in an instant, order something online and have it at our doorstep within an hour, or communicate with anyone across the world in a matter of seconds, it's no wonder we begin to expect our dreams, our goals, and our breakthroughs to come in the same way. But God doesn't always work in fast forward. Sometimes He requires us to take small, consistent steps that might not seem significant right now, but over time they will add up to something bigger than we can imagine. Think about the process of building a house. The construction begins with tiny, almost invisible details. The foundation is laid, the framework is erected, wires are run, and plumbing is installed. At first, it looks like little more than a few wooden beams and a slab of concrete. But every day there's progress, little by little. Those small steps add up, and before long, the house is fully built. It didn't happen all at once, but with steady, incremental work, the dream was realized. The same is true for our lives. You may feel like you're not making much progress today, but every prayer you pray, every kind word you speak, every effort you make to stay positive in difficult circumstances, every act of service to others, it all adds up. Even when you don't see immediate results, God is using these small steps to work in your life in ways you can't yet understand. Consider the example of David. He was just a young shepherd taking care of his father's sheep when God called him to something greater. There was no instant recognition, no instant glory. For years, David spent time alone in the fields, developing his relationship with God, honing his skills with the sling, and building his faith. It was through these small, seemingly mundane tasks that God was preparing him for his destiny. When the giant Goliath appeared, it wasn't David's strength or size that defeated him. It was the faith and experience he had built in the quiet moments of his life. One small step at a time, David was being molded for his moment of breakthrough. In the same way, the small steps you take today are preparing you for the big breakthroughs you desire tomorrow. Don't despise the day of small beginnings. Don't get discouraged because you haven't seen your dream materialize yet. If you remain consistent, keep moving forward, and trust that every step is making a difference, you'll look up one day and realize that you've come further than you ever thought possible. Even when you can't see immediate progress, remember that change is happening in ways you might not notice. It's in the discipline of getting up every day, doing what needs to be done, even when it feels like it's not moving the needle. It's in the persistence to keep going when you don't feel like it. It's in the quiet moments of growth that no one sees. It's when you choose joy in the middle of struggle, when you take the time to be kind, when you keep praying, even when the answer isn't obvious. We've all heard the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, your breakthrough isn't built in a day either. It's not about trying to make huge, dramatic leaps all at once. It's about making a commitment to take one more step, and then another, and then another. Each small step is a piece of the puzzle. Each day of consistency adds another layer of strength. And one day, when you least expect it, all those small steps will culminate in a moment of victory, a breakthrough that you never could have experienced if you hadn't remained faithful in the small things. Remember, God doesn't just care about the end result. He cares about the process. He cares about the person you are becoming as you take those small steps. He's shaping your character, developing your perseverance, and strengthening your faith along the way. Those steps are not insignificant. They are the foundation for what's to come. So keep taking them. Stay faithful. And trust that God is with you every step of the way, leading you toward your breakthrough. Before long, you'll look back and realize that the small steps have led you to a place you never dreamed possible. And you'll be amazed at what God has done in your life. So take the next step and keep trusting the process. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. One of the most powerful forces in life is the way we think. Our thoughts shape our reality, influence our decisions, and ultimately determine the course of our lives. Too often we underestimate just how much our mindset can affect our progress. We think that our circumstances are the things holding us back, when in reality it's often our thoughts that are the greatest obstacles to the change we desire. Whether we realize it or not, the way we think can either speed up our progress or slow it down. There is a simple truth that we all need to understand. What we believe will happen often does. If you wake up every morning thinking that you'll never change, that your situation will never improve, then that mindset will inevitably shape your reality. Your attitude toward your circumstances, whether negative or positive, sets the tone for everything you do. If you believe things will always stay the same, then you're not just accepting the current reality, you're reinforcing it. But on the flip side, when you adopt a mindset of faith, hope, and expectancy, you open the door to possibilities. When you believe that change is not only possible but inevitable, you begin to take steps in alignment with that belief. You start to notice opportunities you might have missed before. You become more open to learning and growing. The right connections, the right opportunities, the right circumstances, they start to find you. Not because anything about your external world has changed yet, but because your inner world has shifted. And that shift in mindset will propel you forward in ways you never expected. Think about the power of positive thinking. It doesn't mean ignoring the struggles you face or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to focus on the possibilities, the progress, and the potential for growth, no matter how difficult the circumstances may seem. When you have a mindset of victory, when you believe that you can overcome challenges and that change is within your reach, you will find the strength to keep moving forward even when the journey gets tough. I once heard a story about a man who was walking through a dense forest, and along the way he came across a clearing with a beautiful view. He decided to set up camp there, and every morning as he woke up, he'd look out at the view and feel a sense of peace and hope. But after a few days, he noticed something. The more he looked at the view, the more it seemed like the view was getting smaller and smaller. He could still see the beauty of the trees and the sky, but it felt confined. As the days went on, the view seemed to shrink more and more until he couldn't see anything but a few trees and some grass. It was only then that he realized his perspective had changed. The view was the same, but his mindset had shifted. He'd begun to focus on the limited parts of the landscape, and in doing so, he'd lost sight of the vastness and beauty of the whole scene. This is exactly what happens in our lives when our mindset becomes limited. We start to focus only on what's wrong, on what hasn't changed, on what's holding us back. And suddenly, our entire world seems small. But when we shift our thinking and choose to focus on the opportunities in front of us, on the good things we have in our lives, on the potential for growth, the view expands. The possibilities open up. We begin to see that there's more for us than we realize. I know it's not always easy to shift our mindset, especially when we've been through hardship or disappointment. But the good news is that we don't have to wait for our circumstances to change before we change the way we think. In fact, changing our thoughts can often be the very thing that triggers the change we're waiting for. When we believe that our breakthrough is coming, when we take our focus off what we lack and put it on what we can do, that's when things start to shift. Take a moment to ask yourself, what am I thinking about today? What are the thoughts I'm allowing to shape my life? Are they thoughts of possibility and progress, or thoughts of defeat and limitation? Are they thoughts that align with the life you want to create, or are they keeping you stuck in the past? Our minds are like a garden, and what we plant in it determines what we harvest. If we fill our minds with negative thoughts, doubts, and fears, we'll harvest a life full of negativity. But if we fill our minds with positive affirmations, faith, and the belief that change is possible, we will begin to see that reflected in our lives. The truth is that your mindset is a powerful tool. It has the power to push you toward your dreams or hold you back from them. When you choose to believe that you can change, that you are worthy of success, that your breakthrough is coming, you will start to take steps in the right direction. Even when things seem tough, even when progress feels slow, your mindset will carry you through. It will keep you going when you want to give up. It will keep you looking for the good, even in the hard times. And most importantly, it will open up doors that you never knew were there, leading you to the change you've been waiting for. So take control of your thoughts. Choose faith over fear. Choose hope over doubt. Choose to believe that your change is on the way, and watch as your mindset accelerates the process, bringing you closer to your breakthrough with every step you take. The power to change begins in your mind. Change the way you think, and the change you desire will follow. In life, we all face moments when we feel as though we're stuck, waiting for something to happen. We pray for change, we work hard toward our goals, and yet the breakthroughs we long for seem to take forever to come. It can be incredibly frustrating to feel like you're doing everything right but still see no immediate results. It's easy to assume that the lack of visible progress means that something is wrong, or worse, that we're being denied what we desire. But I want to challenge that perspective today and remind you of something that's easy to overlook. What feels like delay is often preparation.